The first clue should have been the casserole. No, not because it was poisoned or laced with guilt, or even served to another man while I watched in slow motion from behind a houseplant. It was because Nicole doesn't make casseroles. Not unless someone dies. Or, in this case, something. She called it a midweek mood booster, which sounded less like dinner and more like a Facebook group for wine moms who post inspirational quotes over stock photos of coffee mugs. And there it was, steaming in a glass dish, sitting on the table like it hadn't just broken all laws of kitchen precedent. That casserole said, "Something's off, Larry." Now, I'm not saying I'm the most intuitive man alive. I've worn the same brand of jeans since 2006 and once used deodorant as shaving cream because I was tired and not reading labels. But there are things you just know, like how gravity works, or how your wife of 12 years, who once declared cooking is for people with unresolved childhood trauma, suddenly presents you with a cheesy, bubbling square of domestic affection in the middle of a Wednesday. So I did what any reasonable man would do. I ate it. But I didn't swallow the moment. Here's the thing about Nicole. She's a charismatic mystery with a touch of chaos, like a crossword puzzle someone spilled wine on. She sells high-end office furniture to companies that definitely don't need office furniture. Think desk chairs made from reclaimed wood and gilt. Her job is one of those vague ones people nod politely at and never ask follow-up questions about. She says things like synergy ecosystem and client activation, and I'm supposed to be impressed. I sell HVAC systems. No synergy, all ventilation. We weren't always drifting through life like mismatched socks in the dryer. There were good years, genuinely. The early days were full of long talks, shared sarcasm, and that one glorious phase where she actually found my puns endearing. But lately, she laughs like someone told a joke in a different room. I didn't suspect cheating. That would have required giving her more credit than she deserved. No, I suspected something worse, self-improvement. And I was right. Just not in the way I thought. It started with her attending the workshop. That's what she called it. Just the workshop. Like it was some sacred pilgrimage rather than a 2-day corporate getaway to learn how to smile while upselling ergonomic standing desks. She came back glowing, full of phrases like authentic alignment and intentional living, and started referring to our guest room as her recalibration space. I offered to recalibrate it right into a walk-in closet, but she didn't laugh. That's when I knew something had shifted. I played along, though. I even stopped using her fancy shampoo in the shower, the one with labels that looked like IKEA instruction manuals. I figured if she needed space to realign her chakras or whatever, I could give it. Then, 3 weeks after the workshop, she installed a new mailbox. Stay with me here. This matters. The mailbox was one of those brushed steel numbers with a little flag that clicked when you moved it. Our old one had been fine, weathered, sure, but reliable. This new one, though, this mailbox had intentions. It practically whispered, "Nicole lives here now. Larry's just visiting." And suddenly, she was checking the mail twice a day like she was waiting for a Hogwarts letter. Still, I said nothing. But then came the box. It arrived on a Thursday morning while I was working from home, building a presentation titled, "Why Air Ducts Matter, the Unsung Hero of Comfort." Real edge-of-your-seat stuff. I spotted the package on our porch, no logo. Just a plain cardboard rectangle taped up with the kind of enthusiasm usually reserved for drug smuggling or exorcisms. I brought it in, set it on the counter, and stared at it for a good 5 minutes before the curiosity won. Now, I'm not proud of this. I consider myself a man of principle, someone who believes in boundaries. But the woman fed me casserole. Inside the box was a t-shirt. A plain, black t-shirt with the words, "Conquer with Kevin" screen printed across the front in gold letters that sparkled just enough to be offensive. I held it up like it might detonate. "Kevin," I muttered aloud, as if the shirt might reply. Kevin, it turns out, was her transformational coach. She met him at the workshop. Bald. Tan. The kind of tan that says, "I drink smoothies made from root vegetables and regret nothing." And apparently, he had merch. Merch. Later that night, Nicole came home late from her monthly alignment circle, which is apparently a real thing, not a cult, and saw the open package on the counter. "Oh," she said, a bit too casual. "You opened that?" "No," I said. "It opened itself. Wanted to be free." She blinked. "It's just a t-shirt." "Of course," I said. "That explains the 3 separate motivational note cards tucked inside like fortune cookies." She laughed, sort of. "Larry, don't be weird. Kevin sends those to all his clients. Does he also send them midweek mood casseroles and change their last names on Facebook to Nicole Smith Kevin? Because if so, I think I may have missed the welcome packet. That got a pause. And here's where it gets fun. I didn't confront her. Not directly. Confronting Nicole is like playing chess with a cat, messy, dramatic, and somehow she always ends up knocking the pieces off the board and blaming you for setting it up wrong. So I got creative. I called in a favor from my cousin Donnie, who works in corporate gifting. Donnie owes me for that time I covered for him when he crashed his delivery van into a Chick-fil-A. He sent me a custom mug overnight, white ceramic, tasteful font. Best wishes to Nicole and Kevin. From all of us at Midlife Crisis Headquarters. I left it on her side of the bed with a sticky note. Thought you'd like this for your recalibration space. She didn't find it funny, but I did. And that, my friend, was the beginning of the end. Not the big explosion. Not the scene. Just a mug. A casserole. And a shirt that sparkled like betrayal and cotton blend. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I was amused. Because if you're going to torch a marriage, at least make sure your arsonist has decent branding. I wasn't looking for anything. I want to make that painfully clear. I wasn't snooping. I wasn't prying. I wasn't hovering over her shoulder like a sitcom dad trying to read her texts backward in a mirror. What I was doing was setting up the Wi-Fi printer. Let me explain. Nicole had bought a new printer, of course. Because apparently the one we had, which worked perfectly fine and never once tried to unionize, didn't vibe with the office energy. This new one was shaped like a robot from a sci-fi movie and came with a digital screen that asked me questions in a tone I can only describe as mildly condescending. So I was in her office, what used to be our shared guest room before Nicole decided that guests were no longer spiritually aligned with her boundaries, and trying to connect this printer to her laptop. Now, normally, I'd use mine, but Nicole's laptop was already synced with the printer brand's app because she had pre-calibrated the system. Whatever that means. I think it just means she pushed buttons until it beeped. Anyway, I opened the laptop, which she left on sleep mode, not locked. That's on her, not me. I just had to wake it up to get to the printer settings. Easy enough. Click here, scroll there, search for the Wi-Fi network that somehow doesn't exist despite me paying the internet bill like a loyal taxpayer. That's when it happened. An email pinged in. Right there. Middle of the screen. A pop-up notification. From K. Subject, about last Tuesday. Now, I'm not a suspicious man by nature. I don't think every mystery email is hiding a secret life. But this one had an ellipsis. A real one. 3 dots of mystery. Nothing good ever follows an ellipsis. Still, I didn't click it. I didn't need to. Because Nicole, in her infinite wisdom, had left the mail client open in the background. And the preview was generous. It's been hard not talking to you. I know we said we keep things professional, but Tuesday was. And there it stopped. As if teasing me. As if daring me to continue. Professional. Tuesday. We're talking about a woman who thinks an acceptable work outfit involves gold sneakers and a blazer made of recycled yoga mats. The only thing professional in her life was her ability to avoid responsibility. So yes, at this point I clicked. Don't act surprised. You would too. If someone leaves their diary open on your pillow, you don't ignore it out of respect. You read and judge silently. The email opened up like a confession booth with no priest. Kevin, of course. Of course it was him. Apparently, Tuesday was a big step for them. Apparently, pretending nothing happened was weighing on his mind. Apparently, Nicole had unlocked a side of him he didn't know existed. Which, frankly, sounds like something you'd say about a new feature in a car, not a coworker's wife. The best part? He ended the email with Namaste. That's Kevin. Pretentious and unpunctuated. He didn't even capitalize it. I closed the laptop. Sat there for a second. Blinked. Printer still unconnected. Nicole walked in 5 minutes later holding a houseplant and asked if I thought it seemed thirsty. No more than usual, I replied. She set the plant down like it was our child and looked at the printer. Is it working yet? It's thinking about it. Did you use my laptop? Yeah. Just had to connect it. She nodded, casually, and that was it. No panic. No suspicious glances. No sudden urge to wrestle the device from my hands and yeet it out the window. Which meant one of two things. Either she didn't know I saw the email, or she didn't care if I did. That night, she was in bed scrolling through her phone, probably looking at inspirational quotes about women reclaiming their power, or how to manifest a man who can make toast and validate her feelings at the same time. Meanwhile, I was in the garage, staring at the 2-year-old treadmill she'd used twice and then blamed for making her knees sound crunchy. That's when the plan began to form. Not revenge. Not a confrontation. Just something better. I logged onto my computer, created a Gmail account. First name, client. Last name, relations. I gave it a cute little stock photo of a generic smiling woman in a blazer, the kind who probably hosts webinars about optimizing vertical team structures. Then I typed the email. Dear Nicole, following your recent participation in the Manifest Success Through Kevin program, we're pleased to invite you to our exclusive alumni gathering, Reignite the Spark 2.0. This workshop will focus on how to sustain workplace intimacy while respecting HR boundaries. Topics include advanced whispering, saying everything without saying anything, copy room chemistry, finding love between paper jams, LinkedIn lies, how to block your spouse without ruining your brand, dress code, business confessional. Please RSVP to confirm your emotional availability. Warmly, client relations team, enlightenment elevated. Then I waited. Next morning, I watched Nicole open it over her green smoothie. She squinted, read it again, tilted her head like a confused owl. Then, out loud, she muttered, business confessional? I bit my toast and said, sounds fun. You going? She gave me a strange look. It's spam. Looks pretty legit. I mean, that's your mentor, right? She didn't answer. Just stood there, blinking, like a CAPTCHA test had just challenged her entire reality. That evening, Nicole rearranged her office furniture. Again, she moved the standing desk closer to the window for better light, even though she mostly uses it to charge her smartwatch and lean against dramatically during Zoom calls. She was quiet at dinner. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that people think is deep but is actually just them buffering. I didn't push. Instead, I downloaded every printable Kevin email I could find. Not just the emotional ones. The ones with schedule overlaps. The ones with dinner plans disguised as client follow-ups. The ones where he used words like journey and sacred bond, like they were LinkedIn endorsements. Then I made a binder. Cover page, Kevin, a case study in bad judgment. I put it on her pillow with a sticky note, for your recalibration shelf. She didn't laugh, but I did. And the printer still doesn't work. But that's fine. I'm not planning to print much anymore. Not when the truth is already out there, waiting for her to admit it or pretend it never happened. Either way, I've got the emails. And a new Gmail alias just in case Kevin wants to attend Reignite the Spark 3.0. I hear they're covering how to emotionally detach in 6 simple yoga poses. Should be a hit. Kevin was scheduled to speak at a Connection Strategies mixer on Saturday afternoon. Nicole was not just attending, she was co-hosting. Yes, co-hosting. A word she used as if it were an Olympic title. She even said it like it was hyphenated. Co-hosting. The event was being held in a co-working space named Nucleus. I didn't make that up. That's what it was called. Apparently, it was designed for entrepreneurs who have ideas but no actual business, and for people like Kevin, who somehow made a career out of rearranging other people's lives while their own were smoldering under the surface. Nicole said it wasn't open to the public, but that didn't apply to me. I technically wasn't the public. I was Larry, husband, mortgage partner, guy who spent 20 minutes each morning removing her hair from the shower drain like a forensic pathologist. That had to count for something. So, I made a decision. I signed up. With a fake name, naturally. Randy Jenkins. I gave myself a job title, Interpersonal Conflict Facilitator. It sounded official enough to get me in, vague enough not to raise flags. Saturday came. I wore my nicest collared shirt and the only pair of shoes I own that don't squeak on polished floors. I walked into Nucleus and immediately smelled ambition. Not success. Just the scent of people trying really hard to pretend their ideas were worth funding. There were people in matching lanyards. There were vision boards on easels. One guy had a name tag that said, Idea Sherpa. Another woman had brought a ring light for a mixer. I resisted the urge to leave. I spotted Nicole near the front. She was wearing a jumpsuit that looked like it had been stolen from an art teacher who moonlighted as a beekeeper. Kevin stood next to her, holding a tablet like it was an award. She didn't see me. Not yet. The mixer kicked off with what they called a trust warm-up. We were asked to turn to someone we didn't know and mirror their energy. My partner was a woman named Bree who told me she was a conversation doula. I just nodded. At this point, nothing surprised me. After that, Kevin launched into his keynote. His theme? Breaking barriers by breaking patterns. There was a PowerPoint. There were buzzwords. He said reframe so many times I started to think we were at an optometry conference. Then came the group exercise. We were split into teams. Each team was given a scenario. Our task was to communicate through it using openness and presence. The facilitator handed our group a card. One member of the team feels disconnected from a long-term partner. The cause is unclear. Work together to express needs and re-establish emotional clarity. I blinked. Too real, card. Too real. I stayed quiet, just listened, while Bree and another guy named Tanner, who owned a brand clarity studio, shared their thoughts on unspoken expectations and the role of silence and sabotage. It was like watching people throw inspirational darts at a balloon full of reality. I offered a single suggestion. Maybe the disconnected partner is cheating with their self-help coach. They laughed. Bree said, "Wow, that's dark." Tanner said, "Interesting interpretation." I said, "Just a hunch." After the exercise, Nicole took the stage with Kevin to lead a panel. Topic: professional chemistry and its ethical landscape. I could not have written a more ironic headline if I tried. She looked proud, animated, like someone who had found the perfect setting to be exactly the version of herself she always suspected existed under the laundry pile and overdue bills. Kevin gestured too much with his hands, and every time he said something in that gentle, motivational tone of his, Nicole nodded like he was Moses coming down from the mountain. Then, during the Q&A, I raised my hand. Kevin smiled. "Yes, in the back. What's your question?" I stood up. "Hi, Randy Jenkins. Interpersonal conflict facilitator. Big fan of re-establishing clarity. Quick question. How do you navigate professional chemistry when it turns into, let's say, extracurricular chemistry?" Nicole froze. Kevin blinked like someone unplugged him. I continued, hypothetically. Let's say two coworkers have such synergy, they start treating team meetings like couples therapy. Is there a module for that? Or maybe a boundary worksheet? A few chuckles from the crowd. One woman actually clapped. Kevin recovered. That's an important question, Randy, and a real concern in many dynamic workplaces. I'll bet, I said. Nicole finally spoke. I think the key is transparency and maintaining respect in all channels of connection. Channels of connection, I repeated. Solid advice. Especially when one of those channels is married to someone in this room. Silence. Nicole's smile didn't vanish. It just stalled, like it was buffering. The moderator moved things along. The next question was about managing burnout. I sat down and let them finish their inspirational kabuki theater. After the event, while people mingled over kombucha and vegan crackers, Nicole pulled me aside. "What are you doing here?" she asked through a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Supporting my wife's career," I said. "That's what we do, right? Show up. Ask questions." She sighed. "You made a scene." I made a point. Nicole lowered her voice. "That was inappropriate." "Which part? The part where I used a fake name? Or the part where I pointed out that maybe the emotional wilderness you've been wandering in has a tour guide with cheekbones?" "I can't talk about this here." "Of course not. Not in front of the other believers." She didn't answer. Just walked away, back into the crowd of name tags and buzzwords, leaving me with a half-finished paper cup of cucumber water and a front-row seat to her curated version of reality. I left after that. No dramatic exit. No final statement. Just Randy Jenkins, slipping out the side door of Nucleus, wondering how long a person could orbit someone else's ambition before they burned up on re-entry. Back home, I found one of Nicole's notebooks on the coffee table. She kept them for her ideas, quotes, plans, half-baked philosophies. I flipped it open. Page 1, written in bold letters. "Real transformation requires discomfort." I grabbed a pen. Underneath it, I wrote, "Agreed. See you soon." Then I closed the notebook and started packing. Not everything. Not yet. Just enough to get her attention. Next part's coming. And it won't need a keynote speaker. It started with a calendar invite. Nicole shared it with me like she was being generous, inviting me into her busy world, giving me access to the majestic machinery of her schedule. The event was titled, Thursday 6 p.m., Strategic Reflection and Shared Goal Setting. I opened it thinking maybe she finally wanted to talk like adults. You know, about us. Instead, it came with a note. "Let's reset. Would be great to realign our paths. Kevin will be facilitating." Speech balloon. That was it. No, hi. No, how are you? Just that line and a talking head emoji like I was being summoned to a tech startup's vision board meeting. Also, facilitating? Kevin? Really? Still, I accepted the invite. I've never been one to ignore the opportunity to witness performance art this up close. Thursday arrived. At 5:57 p.m. sharp, Nicole rearranged our living room. not cleaned it, rearranged it. Our couch, which has been against the same wall for 8 years, was spun 40 degrees like it had suddenly developed a social anxiety disorder. She lit 3 candles and placed an empty journal on the coffee table. For ambience, she said. At 6 p.m. exactly, Kevin appeared. He didn't knock like a normal person. He buzzed the doorbell and waved through the window with that wide, overly humble smile you only see on people who speak in hashtags. Nicole let him in like he was royalty. I stood up, extended my hand. "Welcome to my home, Kevin," I said. He shook it, firm but soft, like he was afraid of offending my chakras. "Thanks, Larry. This is a safe space tonight," he replied, like he was hosting an intervention for someone else's personality. Kevin took the single armchair, my armchair, the one I nap in when I'm tired of hearing Nicole talk about her vision for repurposing the pantry into a creative nook. He opened a leather folder, pulled out a pen like he was about to mediate a border treaty, and looked at us. "I want to thank you both for showing up." Nicole nodded like this was a TED Talk. I sat back on the couch, arms crossed, watching the show. Kevin continued. "Tonight, we're going to move through a conversation format called Root and Reach. We'll each take turns naming something we want to root down in, and something we want to reach for. This gives us language to hold space for each other's needs." I turned to Nicole. "Did we hire him? Is this a billable hour?" "Larry," she said with the patience of a teacher explaining math to a plant, "this is important. Please take it seriously." "I'm just making sure I'm not going to get invoiced for sarcasm," I said. Kevin smiled, scribbled something on his pad. Probably a note like, "Client demonstrates resistance through humor." Nicole went first. "I want to root in presence," she said, like that meant anything at all. "And I want to reach for a shared future where we both feel seen." Kevin nodded like she just solved emotional physics. Then it was my turn. "I want to root in plumbing," I said. "Specifically, fixing the faucet in the upstairs bathroom that's been leaking for 6 weeks. And I want to reach for a drawer that doesn't have 12 expired lip balms and a broken essential oil roller." Kevin blinked, pen hovering in the air. Nicole sighed. "You're not taking this seriously." "Oh, I'm very serious. I'd also like to reach for a reality where I don't come home to motivational post-its stuck to my coffee maker that say things like, 'You are enough,' written in gold sharpie." Kevin smiled again. "Larry, sometimes humor is a shield. But let's go deeper. When was the last time you felt emotionally engaged with Nicole?" I pretended to think. Probably the time she locked herself out and texted me 15 times in a row using all caps. That was a very engaged moment. "Larry," Nicole said, a little louder now. Kevin interjected, holding up his calming hands. "Let's try a technique. Nicole, I'd like you to offer Larry a reflection. 1 sentence. Begin with, 'What I hear you saying is.'" Nicole straightened her back like she'd rehearsed for this. "What I hear you saying is, you feel disconnected and unseen, and maybe overwhelmed by the changes I've been making to our shared life." I tilted my head. "That's not even close." She blinked. "That's literally what you said." "No," I said. "What I said is, there's a drawer full of expired lip balms and the bathroom faucet leaks. I can draw a diagram if that helps." Kevin started writing furiously again, probably drafting an emergency support group email for partners of non-partners. Nicole stood up. "You think this is funny," she said, eyes narrowing. I stood up, too. "Nicole, you invited your emotional pen pal into our house to mediate a relationship you're actively moonlighting out of. Forgive me if I'm not bringing gratitude beads to the table." Kevin cleared his throat. "Sometimes, bringing in a third perspective can open up." "Kevin," I said, pointing gently, "I need you to stop talking now." He stopped. Nicole's voice softened, but not in a good way. It was that condescending tone people use when talking to retail workers about return policies. "You're deflecting. This isn't about Kevin. It's literally about Kevin." She glanced down, suddenly studying the carpet like it might back her up. "You're afraid," she said. "You're afraid to look at your own role in all this." I clapped once. "Ah, there it is. Blame pivot." "Kevin, do you teach that in Module 2, or is that an advanced maneuver?" Kevin stood up. "I think maybe we should reschedule." "No," I said. "I think we're right on schedule." Nicole followed Kevin to the door. I stayed where I was. When she came back, she didn't say anything, just started blowing out the candles like a disappointed birthday guest. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a small box from under the table, and carried it to the living room. I set it on the couch. She looked at it. "What's that?" "Your mail. The stuff that still comes with your maiden name. Thought it might be symbolic." "You're being petty." "No, I'm being productive." Petty would be going into your office and swapping all your inspirational quotes with instructions on how to reset a toilet chain. I walked past her and down the hall. Before I reached the bedroom, I said one last thing. Tell Kevin he can keep the chair. He's already taken everything else. Then I shut the door. Not to end the conversation, just to give her the silence she didn't know how to hold. On Monday, Nicole created a spreadsheet titled Life Transition Logistics. She didn't say a word about it until she sent me the link via email, as if I were some intern being looped in on an upcoming product launch. The subject line was moving forward with clarity. No punctuation. Just vibes. It had columns, tasks, color codes. There were bullet points for furniture split, subscription ownership, and something called energetic untangling, which I'm pretty sure she made up while burning sage over her diffuser. She had listed my name next to all the appliances, every streaming account, and the garage shelving unit she once referred to as ugly but functional, which coincidentally is how she once described my cousin Greg. I scrolled through it without responding. I didn't accept or reject the invite. I just let it sit there in my inbox like a digital ghost. She followed up with a nudge email on Wednesday morning. Subject line, gentle reminder herb. So I wrote back, Nicole, I'm going to handle this the old-fashioned way with a conversation. Preferably one that doesn't involve Google Sheets or a third-party facilitator. Let's do this like people who once shared a password. Larry. She agreed to meet in the garage. Her idea. Said it was neutral ground. You'd think we were dividing up Cold War territories, not separating laundry baskets. I got there first and sat on the step near the tool cabinet. She showed up with a clipboard. I was impressed. She'd fully committed to the bit. If she had brought a headset and name badge, I might have offered her a raise. She sat down on an upside-down storage bin and took a breath like she was preparing for a monologue in an indie drama. I think we should start with expectations, she said. What are you hoping to get from this meeting? Well, ideally, closure, I said. But at minimum, my socket wrench. She gave me a look. The kind where she debates whether I'm being funny or emotionally stunted. Spoiler, it's always both. She cleared her throat. I know things have been strained. I'd like to clarify where we each stand. I think your spreadsheet did that. I was trying to be organized. You put me down for the blender, Nicole. Well, you use it. I used it once. To mix grout. She clicked her pen and poised it over her paper. I think we should talk about timelines. I'm not moving out tonight, if that's what you're getting at. No one said tonight. You alphabetized the drawer inventory. She stayed silent. That's how I knew she'd spend hours on it. So, I said, just so I'm clear, this is your official exit strategy? No discussion about trying to fix anything? We just divide everything like a going out of business sale. Nicole looked down at her clipboard like it might have the answers. Then back at me. I think we both know things haven't been working. No, you haven't been working. I've been over here holding this circus tent together while you host TED Talks with Kevin and realign your vibrations. I needed space. You got a whole Google Doc, Nicole. She didn't respond to that. Instead, she flipped the page and got to the bullet labeled mutual acknowledgement. She read it out loud like she was fulfilling a contractual obligation. I acknowledge the shared time and growth we've experienced. I am grateful for the lessons and memories. I stared at her. Is that from a meditation app or a fortune cookie? It's from the workbook Kevin gave me. Of course it is. She looked up then, finally meeting my eyes. You're angry. No, I said. I'm a man sitting in a garage being thanked for his emotional labor like he just finished jury duty. She softened for a second. You were a good partner, Larry. That's the worst compliment I've ever received. I'm serious. You were kind. You were supportive. But not interesting enough to compete with Kevin's inner light? She frowned. It wasn't about that. Then explain it. One sentence. Try me. She hesitated. Then shrugged. I changed. People change their phone numbers. Not their entire personalities. I realized I needed more than comfort. I nodded. So, instead of discussing it, you booked a series of enlightenment seminars and hired a grown man named Kevin to coach you through the breakup. He helped me understand myself. Did he also help you update your LinkedIn bio? Because it now says you specialize in transformational synergy. I do. Nicole, you sell overpriced chairs to executives who think lumbar support is a personality trait. She exhaled slowly. I'm not trying to fight. Don't worry, I said. You've already won. You get your clarity. You get your neutral ground garage meetings. You get your clipboard. She sat back, unsure for the first time all evening. I stood up. walked to the shelf, picked up the blender she so graciously assigned to me. Guess I'll take this, I said. Start a smoothie empire. Find myself. Don't do this sarcastically. Sorry. It's my love language. Nicole looked at her list, then back at me. You know what's sad? She said. Is this a trick question? We were great once. Yeah. Then you outsourced our relationship to a man who says, hold space, instead of listen. She didn't have a comeback. Just a clipboard and a curated life plan with built-in healing stages and a signature scent diffuser. I left the garage with the blender, a half-smirk, and the quiet knowledge that this was the last version of us that would ever exist. When I got back inside, I deleted the spreadsheet from my inbox, rejected the calendar invites, blocked Kevin's email just for fun. Then I opened a blank document. Title, Life After Nicole, Logistics Unavailable. No bullets. No colors. Just space. The kind that isn't curated. Real space. For something better. Or, at the very least, a drawer without laminated quotes. Nicole scheduled the final meeting. She didn't call it that, of course. She titled the calendar invite Closing Circle, Completion Conversation. I don't know when breakups became employee evaluations, but here we were. My options were accept, decline, or maybe. I chose other by writing sure in the notes and hitting save. It was set for Sunday morning at 10 a.m. because nothing says spiritual maturity like ending a marriage before brunch. I arrived on time. It was in the living room, her preferred, intentional space. She'd arranged 2 floor cushions at a diagonal, just far enough apart to prevent casual leg stretching from turning into accidental contact. A low table between them held a pitcher of lemon water, 2 notepads, and a sand timer. Because apparently, gravity now measures emotional honesty. Nicole was already seated, barefoot, wearing a buttonless linen shirt that could have passed as hospital scrubs or avant-garde pajamas, depending on the lighting. She greeted me with a, "Hey, Larry," as if we were coworkers who once shared a rental car. I nodded. Nice setup. You start charging by the hour yet? She didn't laugh. Just motioned for me to sit. This is meant to be a space where we can both say what needs to be said, without judgment. Sounds promising. Do you want to go first? She asked, gesturing to the sand timer like we were on a game show with unusually low stakes. I flipped it and leaned back. I'll keep it simple, I said. Thanks for the memories, the blender, and the digital detox you forced on me every time you forgot the Wi-Fi password. That's it. She blinked. You're joking. No, I'm summarizing. I thought we were being efficient. Nicole sighed and picked up her notepad. She had prepared remarks. I want to acknowledge your presence through this transition, she began. Your steadiness helped me recognize areas where I'd become stagnant. While our timelines have diverged, I still honor the connection we once had. I waited. She looked up. That's it. Solid, I said. Reads like a motivational coaster. Nicole didn't smile. She set the notepad down and reached for the pitcher. As she poured lemon water into 2 mismatched mugs, hers with a mandala, mine with a chip the size of her self-awareness, I spotted something new on the shelf. A printed sign that read, "Release what no longer serves you." I pointed. Did you make that? Or did Kevin give it to you as part of the betrayal starter kit? She looked at it like she forgot it was there. It's just a reminder. To declutter your conscience? It's about letting go. I took a sip of water. You first. Nicole placed her mug down carefully. Larry, I know this hasn't been easy for either of us. Oh, this has been very easy for you. Kevin's been a real efficiency boost. Her tone shifted. You act like I planned all of this. I don't think you planned it. I think you wandered into it like everything else you do, with conviction and no map. She leaned forward. You're angry because I found something that made me feel alive. No, I'm angry because you acted like your rebirth required my burial. She sat back, crossing her legs like she was meditating, though I could tell she was restraining herself from rolling her eyes. Her serenity was a performance, and I was the only audience member who hadn't clapped. We sat in silence. The sand ran out. Nicole turned the timer again. I think we should talk about what happens next, she said. Living arrangements. Financials. Sure, I said. Let's divide the house based on who's responsible for which mistakes. I'm serious. So am I. I get the garage, the attic, and the one working toilet. You get the journals, the mood lighting, and any item Kevin's touched. You don't need to be like this. I'm not being anything. I'm sitting on a floor pillow with no lumbar support, ending a 12-year marriage like we're moderating a book club. She folded her arms. This could have been peaceful. It is peaceful. This is the calmest I've been in months. Nicole picked up her phone. Let's just finalize the timeline. You really love schedules. They help bring order. You know what else brings order? Honesty. I was honest. No. You were cryptic, performative, and emotionally absent. That's not honesty. That's theater with worse lighting. I told you I was unhappy. After you rebranded yourself and hired a guy with a standing desk to tell you what your feelings meant. She stood up, pacing now. I did what I had to do. You were never going to change. No, Nicole. I wasn't. Because I thought this marriage was fine. I thought building something slow and real was enough. You're the one who needed constant evolution. I needed more than sarcasm and routine, Larry. And I needed more than being casually replaced by someone who wears toe shoes. We both stood there, facing each other in the middle of a living room full of mismatched wisdom. Then Nicole said, quietly, "You really think I replaced you?" I shrugged. You brought Kevin to our house like he was a consultant for our emotional plumbing. She rubbed her forehead. It wasn't about replacing you. Then what was it? She hesitated. It was about finding myself. Well, congratulations. You found yourself. And now I get to lose you in the most spreadsheet-friendly way possible. Nicole sat down again, suddenly calm. So what now? I walked to the hallway, returned with a box. I set it on the table between us. Inside was everything of hers I had no interest in. Herbal tea blends, affirmation cards, a dream journal with exactly 2 entries, one of which was a recipe for vegan chili. On top, I placed the printed spreadsheet she'd shared. I'm releasing what no longer serves me, I said, gesturing toward the sign. She didn't speak. I headed for the door. Before I stepped out, I turned back once. I hope Kevin gives you the emotional expansion you need. Just don't let him near the budget. She tilted her head. You're not coming back? I opened the door. Nicole, this was me coming back. For the last time. Then I left the house. No speech. No second glance. No post-it notes. And definitely no lemon water. A week after the closing circle, I came back for the microwave. It wasn't sentimental. It was just mine. I bought it after the old one gave up reheating lasagna and started making weird electrical noises like it was trying to call for help. I told Nicole I'd be by between 2 and 3 on Saturday. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji, which, for a woman who once held a 5-minute conversation about the tone of exclamation points, felt like a snub wrapped in pixelated politeness. The house looked different. Not in a dramatic way, no neon signs or incense smoke, but in the way someone quietly replaces your presence with abstract art and layered rugs. She'd moved the bookshelves, replaced the coffee table with something lower and shinier. The walls had fewer photos and more inspirational phrases framed like they were declarations of independence. I paused in the entryway and stared at a new piece by the coat rack that read, "Let it go. Let it flow. Let it be." I assumed it was about plumbing, but knowing Nicole, it was probably about detaching from outcomes. She wasn't home. That was the agreement. Neutral collection. No parting ceremony. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the microwave, and unplugged it. The cord snagged a nearby coaster, which fell onto the floor and spun for a moment. It had the word gratitude on it in cursive. I set it back on the counter upside down. I didn't check the rest of the house. I didn't open drawers or glance at the fridge magnets or see if my toothbrush was still in the cup by the sink. I picked up the microwave, turned, and walked to the door. Then I saw the envelope on the floor. It wasn't addressed. Just sitting there, slightly tucked under the edge of the welcome mat like it had been left for me by a forgetful intern. I set the microwave down and opened it. It was a printed letter. Typed, because of course it was. Larry, I know you didn't ask for words. You've probably had enough of mine, and Kevin's, and whatever words ended up stuck between us somewhere around your 9. But I wanted to leave you with a few that didn't come from a script. You were consistent. You were loyal. You were present. And I didn't know how to hold those things while trying to chase who I thought I could become. That's not your fault. That's me wanting something that maybe didn't exist, but trying to make it real anyway. I don't expect you to forgive me. But I do hope, somewhere down the line, you remember us for more than just the awkward exit and passive-aggressive calendars. I never stopped appreciating what you built, even if I walked away from it. Nicole. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it and slid it into my back pocket, not because I planned to keep it, but because it felt weird leaving it there next to the lemon water pitcher and framed silence. I picked up the microwave, walked out the door, and closed it behind me. No dramatic pause. No final glance. Back at my new apartment, I set the microwave on the counter. It looked out of place next to the mismatched plates and my one functional fork, but I didn't mind. I had a chair, a bed, a view of a parking lot, and more silence than I needed. That night, I sat with the letter for the third time, then dropped it in the trash. Not out of spite. It just didn't belong anywhere anymore. Like an expired password. The next morning, I made coffee, opened my laptop, signed up for a class called Introduction to 3D Modeling. I'd been curious about it for years but never made the time. Nicole used to say it was a hobby for people who liked clicking more than creating. She might have been right. I clicked a lot that day. I didn't tell anyone about the letter. I didn't send a final message. I didn't post a reflection with filtered tears and hashtags about healing. I just lived through the silence she left. And then I kept going. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel